Oh wow, Mara made it. I thought she only existed in Mom's Christmas cards. That's what my sister Delia said loudly while raising her glass at our mother's 60th birthday dinner. I'm Mira Callahan, I'm 35. And yes, I smiled, even as the whole table laughed like she'd landed the joke of the night. Let her enjoy the spotlight, because in 20 minutes a uniformed officer would walk into that room, and the way he'd speak to me would shift the entire balance of that family table. Have you ever been invisible in your own family until the moment they couldn't ignore you anymore? Tell me below, I'm listening. Growing up, DA always got the corner slice of cake, the one with the most frosting. I got the flat middle piece. No sprinkles, no sugar, flour, no fuss. It wasn't just birthdays, her piano recitals were events, her report cards got pinned to the fridge. I was the quiet one, nose in books, drawing jet engines in the margins of my notebooks, reading about Amelia Earhart while she learned contouring from Teen Vogue. When I earned my pilot's license before I could legally drink, no one at home blinked. When I got into the Air Force Academy, Mom sighed, "You should think about something more stable." She said, "Flying planes isn't exactly ladylike." Dad didn't even look up from his paper. Meanwhile, Delia married a local realtor at 22, had a kid at 24, and moved into a freshly painted colonial 2 blocks from my parents. She hosted baby showers and 4th of July BBQs, posted filtered family pics with captions like "Grateful for my tribe." She was always the first to like her own posts. I showed up for Christmas some years when I could. Most times I was stationed overseas or deep in training. One year, I brought Mom a framed photo of me shaking hands with a NATO general. She smiled and said, "How nice." 10 minutes later, it disappeared under a pile of junk mail. They never asked what I did, never asked who I became. And so I stopped offering. At dinner, I'd sip water, smile, and learn how to vanish, even while sitting right there. I didn't stop showing up, I just stopped explaining myself. While Delia organized PTA meetings and bought seasonal throw pillows, I was deployed, training cadets in the desert, running pre-flight systems checks at 0400, making decisions in the air that weighed more than I ever let on. Still, no one asked, no one wanted to know. The last time I came home, I brought a photo, me in uniform standing beside a NATO jet. Mom smiled, "That's nice." It vanished in minutes. At brunch the next day, Delia had place cards for everyone. Mine said "Mirror." When I corrected her, she rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on, it's not like you're famous." I bit my tongue and said nothing. She talked about the parking situation at her Pilates studio, the new Range Rover that wouldn't fit in her garage. Never once asked where I'd been, what I'd done. I'd spent the last 3 months designing tactical flight simulations for elite pilots. But sure, let's talk about towel folding techniques. I stopped offering slices of my life like party favors. They never wanted them anyway. The only people who saw me, really saw me, were the ones who stood beside me on the tarmac, who saluted because they understood what I carried. By the time I became lieutenant colonel, I didn't flinch at the weight of command. I wasn't loud about it, I didn't need to be. When the Aviation Command Weekly featured my program on the cover, I didn't send it home. What for? No one was reading. So, when the invitation came for Mom's 60th, formal dress code, private dining, RSVP required, I RSVP'd, yes. Not out of guilt, not out of longing, something had shifted, a click, like a cockpit door sealing shut. I wasn't coming home to be seen, I was coming home to be done. The night of the dinner, I wore a simple navy dress, low heels, no uniform, no medals. I didn't need to look impressive, I was impressive. I arrived precisely on time, not early, not late, the way a pilot lands when everything's under control. The room was bathed in candlelight and linen, the kind of setting that made people like DEA feel more important than they were. She was already mid-story, laughing about her latest $1 million listing. When I entered, a few cousins offered polite nods. My father muttered, "Oh, there she is." Delia hugged me like a hostess greeting a stranger. "Glad you could fit us into your top-secret schedule." I smiled. "It's classified, but I'll make an exception." She turned to the room. "Mara's back from wherever she's been saving the world." More laughter. I took my seat at the far end beside a cousin's boyfriend who tried asking what I did. I said, "Aviation training," and left it there. The wine flowed, so did the backhanded compliments. When someone asked Delia if she'd ever move out of state, she smirked. "Someone has to take care of Mom and Dad. Not everyone can afford to disappear for years." Even Mom smiled at that. I said nothing, but in my mind, I ran through the call signs of the cadets I'd trained last week, young women who would follow my orders in battle without ever questioning my worth. Then just as dessert arrived, a waiter leaned in. "Miss Callahan, you have a visitor in the lobby. Says it's delivery protocol." Dalia blinked. "What roses?" I stood. "Just documents." My heels echoed on the marble as I walked away from the table and toward the shift they never saw coming. The lobby was quiet except for the steady footsteps of Lieutenant Reyes, full flight suit, boots polished, bearing sharp as a blade. When he saw me, he stood to attention and saluted. "Lieutenant Colonel Callahan, ma'am. Delivery secured. General Dorsey sends his compliments." The words weren't loud, but they carried right through the dining room doors. I held the salute for a moment longer than needed, then replied, "Thank you, Lieutenant. You may stand down." "Yes, ma'am." He handed me the folder, stepped aside like a marble statue, and waited, back straight, eyes forward. I turned toward the room, walked past the maitre d', past the wine wall, past the frozen faces watching. Dalia's mouth hung open. Mom's eyes locked on the folder like it was ticking. My father cleared his throat and reached for a glass that wasn't there. I returned to my seat, placed the sealed envelope in my purse, picked up my dessert fork. "Sorry for the interruption," I said casually. "Please go on." But no one spoke. The air had shifted. My cousin's boyfriend, who hadn't looked at me twice, now sat straighter. Mom adjusted her scarf. Dad poured from an already empty wine bottle. "DEA tried first." "Well, that was dramatic. Who even does salutes in real life?" She laughed. "Too high. Too hollow." I didn't answer. The only people who fumble after a salute are the ones who know exactly what it means and what it costs to earn. My uncle finally asked, "Are you really a lieutenant colonel?" "Yes, sir," I said, voice steady. 16 years in service. 16 years. Longer than Dalia's marriage. Longer than any family photo still hanging on Mom's wall. Long enough to become invisible to the people who never bothered to ask where I'd been. Dalia blinked. "I just didn't know." "You never asked," I said softly. And for the first time all night, silence wasn't awkward. It was accountability. I stood smoothing my dress. "I appreciate the invitation," I said quietly, "but I have a debriefing at 0600. No one tried to stop me. Not even Mom. Lieutenant Reyes was still by the entrance, standing tall. No slouch in his spine. When I approached, he opened the restaurant door with crisp precision, no words, just quiet respect. Halfway through, I paused. Not to gloat, not to dramatize, just to be seen. I turned, not to Dalia, not to my parents, to the whole table. I serve with people who don't need to understand everything I've done to respect me for doing it. I used to wish that could happen here. I've stopped wishing, and then I walked out. The night air was colder than I remembered. Clean. Reyes gave a simple nod before stepping away. No salute this time. He didn't need to. I slid into my car and drove into the quiet, past the linen and laughter, past the history that no longer weighed me down. They didn't follow. They didn't message the next day or the next week. Just silence. And for once, that silence didn't hurt. It felt honest. Back at base, the cadets stood when I entered, not out of fear, but because they trusted me to lead. They didn't care how many cousins I had, only whether I could fly steady through turbulence and keep a team intact. Some stories aren't for those who watched us grow. They're for those who witnessed what we became. Let Dalia tell her version. I'm not here for applause. I'm here for the mission, for the sky, and the silence that finally feels like peace. Have you ever outgrown your family's version of you? Tell me in the comments.